Dear loving Father, which art in heaven, Lord, once again, we call in your direction. And Lord, we pray, Father, that you would guide us through this evening. Now bless us, dear Lord, and Lord, send your angels, Lord, to God over us and walk us through this training. In Christ's wonderful name, amen. Okay, we're going to try to get through this presentation. It's not a long one, on dealing with seizures and epileptic seizures. And then when we finish with that, we're going to try to go through the charts. Either we'll go through constipation or we'll go through the fibroid chart. But we're going to try to go through this first since it's not very long. And if we can get through it fast enough, then we'll look at the chart.
Excuse me, brother. Can you explain what seizure means?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to explain in the presentation. Yes, you'll see what it is. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're looking at epileptic and seizures. And there was incidents in the Bible that Christ experienced this problem also with different people he ran across. Upon all who engaged in the Lord's work rests the responsibility of fulfilling the commission. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. In Matthew 28:19-20. Christ himself has given us an example of how we are to work. Reading the 4th chapter of Matthew, we learn what method Christ, the Prince of Life, followed in his teachings. Leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is upon the sea coast, and the borders of Zebulun and Nephtali, that he might fulfill which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, the land of Zebulun and the land of Nephtali by the way. And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And he said unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishermen of men. And they straightway left their nets and followed him. And going on from thence, he saw two brethren, James, the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, in a ship with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets. And he called them. And they immediately left the ship and their father and followed him. Christ is still walking up and through the streets, the towns, and the villages. And he's walking up in your heart, and he's asking his people to drop it and follow him. I'm so glad that the disciples were who they were, because today, if Christ was still looking for the first to follow him, I don't know if he'd get many to follow him. Because we got so much we got to do. So much we have planned for our lives that I don't think he would be able to get 12 men or women to drop it and follow him. The responsibility we feel is just too great. It's just too great. And so, but I believe in the end, Christ will find faithful men and women that will drop it and follow him, that will value working in Christ's labor greater than the ambitions of this life. And that's their education, their retirement, or whatever it is. And I believe he must find people that would do that. These humble fishermen were Christ's first disciples. He did not say that they were to receive a certain sum for their service. They were to share with him his self-denial and sacrifice. And Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. And his fame went throughout all Syria, And they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with divers disease and tormented, and those which were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatics, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them. In every sense of the word, Christ was a medical missionary. He came to this world to preach the gospel, to heal the sick. He came as a healer of the body as well as the soul of a human being. His message was the obedience to the law of the kingdom of God would bring men and women health and prosperity. In Matthew the 17th chapter, verse 13, then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. And when they were come to the multitude, there came to him a certain man kneeling down to him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he's a lunatic, and sore vexed for oftentimes. He falleth into the fire and often into the water. This man possibly was having a seizure, an epileptic attack, and he had no control of his body. Seizures happen because of abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Now, many things can cause this disruption of electrical transmission through neurons that transmit messages to the brain cells and through the central nervous system. It could be an injury. It could be chemicals, toxins can interfere with the transmission of the nerve signals. I found that in young babies, just being severely constipated can cause that. And just a simple matter of just relieving the bowels can eliminate that problem. Malnourishment can do it. So there's a number of things can do it. It may go nearly unnoticed sometimes because they come in different degrees, you know. Some people can just, eyes can flicker, just do that, and they just had a seizure. And some people can have seizures and fall out and try to chew on their tongue. It's just many ways. Some people can just shake and it's gone. And they may not know that they're having a seizure because it's just so quick and it's over with. Many times they have a seizure, they're not even aware they had it. It may cause unconsciousness or convulsions when your body shakes uncontrollably. Seizures usually come on suddenly. How long and severe they can vary. They can last varies. A seizure can happen to you just once, or over and over again. If they keep coming back, that is epilepsy or a seizure disorder. Less than 1 in 10 people who have a seizure get epilepsy. So you can have a seizure and never develop into epilepsy. But if you keep coming back, then you probably have developed, epileptic seizure. Because it could be a temporary interruption of the nerve signals that block a signal, and then all of a sudden it's removed, and then you're okay. You don't have another one. But if it's a prolonged system that's causing it to happen repeatedly over and over again, then it's probably going to develop into epileptic seizures. Generalized seizures, these involve your entire brain from the start. And there's also subtypes. And the subtype is different tonic seizures, such as grand mal seizures. This is the most common subtype. Your arms and your legs get stiff and you may stop breathing for a small bit. That's one of the most common type. That's one of the most recognizable seizures. Then your limbs will jerk around, your head will move about as well. And then you have what they call petit mal seizures. In this type of seizure, you lose awareness briefly. When you have one of these, children get them more often than adults. Typically, they last only a few seconds. These are convulsions, and in particular childhood seizures are convulsions that they may have from a high fever caused by an infection, or they can last a few minutes but are usually harmless. And so you watch a child get a high fever, he can go into convulsions. And typically that will correct itself. Infantile spasms, these usually stop by the age of 4. The child's body gets stiff suddenly, his head goes forward. Many kids who have these get epilepsies later on in life. So what are some of the causes of this particular problem, seizures? In most of the cases, like most disease, they don't know. And they really don't know. The medical system really do not know what caused sickness, because they don't spend time studying the cause. They're too busy studying the symptoms. Because it's harder to fix the cause than it is to fix the symptoms. Often it is unknown. Many things can bring them on, including a stroke, cancer, brain tumor, head injury, electrical imbalance. Low blood sugar can do it. Repetitive sounds and flashing lights can do it, like in a video game. Some medication can do it. Withdrawal from some of your medication can trigger a seizure. Narcotics and alcohol could do it. Use of narcotics, such as cocaine and heroin, can bring them on. Brain infection can also cause a seizure. The difference between epileptics and seizures, many believe they having a seizure equate to having epilepsy. Seizures that appear to begin elsewhere in the brain at once are classified as generalized seizures, while those beginning in one location in the brain are classified as partial seizures. Although two terms are often used simultaneously, a seizure, which is a single occurrence, is different than epilepsy, which is defined as 2 or more unprovoked seizures. Now let's look at some of the things we can do to remedy and treat epileptic and seizures. First of all, one of the best remedies in the world is CBD, cannabidiol. Now that's a taboo word for Seventh-day Adventists. Cannabis, they don't like that word. I don't like it either, but I've learned to appreciate it because hemp has a twin sister. They almost identical, except they are different. Matter of fact, for all of us that oppose to and don't like marijuana, we probably consume it on a regular basis and don't even know it. Because most of us probably eat some salad dressing with hemp seeds in it. Well, I mean, maybe you're not aware of it, but those hemp seeds is marijuana seeds. That's what it is, hemp. Hemp is marijuana. Okay, so, and you buy it in the health food store, you buy it in different dressings and so on, and you never think that could be marijuana, but it is. Yeah, it is. Hemp is marijuana.
But I don't have a problem with cannabis.
Right. It's just another name for it.
Yeah.
Cannabis and hemp is the same thing. Now, the big difference between these two sisters is, and I'll share with you in a minute, they have 2 different chemical makeups. And that is the big difference. One will get you high and make you feel good. The other one will not get you high and make you feel good. And so I explain this. We go, take 1 teaspoon of hemp seed oil 2 times a day. And that is the right type of hemp. And then it will definitely stop those seizures. I want you to listen to this one, and then you draw your conclusion on hemp.
Their once happy, joyful little girl.
She started to really decline cognitively, and she was slipping away. She just wasn't keeping up with her twin.
The Figgies finally found an answer. It was awful news. Dravet syndrome. It is severe, intractable epilepsy. The seizures start during the first year of life and are unstoppable, difficult to control, and very damaging. For the next 2 years, the Figgies tried everything. Strange diets, acupuncture, and dozens of powerful drugs like Valium, Ativan, phenobarbital, but nothing seemed to help. Even worse, some of the medications nearly killed her.
After 1 dose, she stops breathing, and after 2 doses, her heart will stop.
Did you have to do CPR then on her yourself?
Yes. I remember when her heart stopped and I had her pulse, and I lost her pulse. There was just nothing. The ambulance is on its way.
She survived. But now it was fall of 2011, and Charlotte was 5 years old.
When things are at their worst, she just sees all night. The kids are sleeping either in my room or next door. They can hear the seizure scream all night, 50 times a night. And Chase would come in the morning and just, this is her twin, and just hug her and like rub her head and say, I'm just so glad you survived through the night last night.
Matt had been deployed to Afghanistan, and the only thing he could do to help was start scouring the internet. And he stumbled onto this video of a child using marijuana.
So how's everything going? You had 4 days without a seizure.
I'm like, wow, this is having success, and specifically Dravet. This is interesting. It's natural.
And while he couldn't ever imagine taking marijuana himself, he was now in the stunning position of recommending it for Charlotte.
I was like, we need to do this.
And I said, I don't know.
And then Charlotte's condition got worse. 300 seizures a week, almost 2 every hour. She was not talking or moving, basically catatonic. As a last resort, doctors wanted to either prescribe a powerful veterinary drug used on epileptic dogs or put Charlotte in a medically induced coma so her brain and body could rest. For Paige, those were not good options. But maybe, just maybe, marijuana now was. Here's how scientists think it might work. Marijuana is made up of 2 ingredients. THC, that's the psychoactive part that makes you high, and CBD, also called cannabidiol. It's the CBD that scientists think modulates electrical and chemical activity to help quiet the excessive activity in the brain.
So the 2 components, THC and CBD, are the 2 major components to the marijuana plant. Scientists have figured out how to separate the THC, to remove it out of it, and still retain the medical properties of the marijuana plant, which is the CBD. And they did that by cross-breeding or cross-pollinating it. It's kind of like, comfrey plant. Comfrey and mullein is first and second cousin to tobacco plant. So you wouldn't think of smoking tobacco, but you would use a comfrey and mullein tea. Well, they're first and second cousins. So that means they has enough kinship that you can grow them together. You can crossbreed them. And they would produce a different type of tobacco. Pod, comfrey, mullein, and pod tobacco. Same as you can do with a nectarine. You can make a nectarine with a peach and by mixing it with something else. Okay, so what they did is found a plant that was very similar to the marijuana plant, and they crossbreeded it, and they produced another plant. They kept doing that till they figured out how they could breed away the THC and increase the CBD. And so that's how they came up with cannabidiol. And it's a wonderful process because it works really perfect.
That causes seizures. Behind closed doors and under tight security, we enter what the Stanleys call the Garden of Eden.
There's nothing like this in THC.
It took years of crossbreeding plants to get to this point.
Instead of breeding up the THC, we bred down the THC and bred up the CBD. And people said, "You're crazy. Who's going to smoke that?"
So why grow it then? Well, the Stanleys also believed in CBD's potential to treat many diseases. It was January 2012. Afghanistan. About 7,000 miles away from his family in Colorado, Matt Figge received this video from his wife, Paige.
It's horrible seeing these videos when I'm deployed.
It was his 5-year-old daughter, Charlotte, seizing. Diagnosed with a severe form of epilepsy, she was having 300 seizures a week. Each attack so severe, it had the potential to kill her. They had already tried dozens of high-powered drugs.
We needed to try something else, and at that point in time, marijuana was that natural course of action to try.
At home in Colorado, Paige searched for marijuana high in CBD. That's the ingredient some scientists think helps seizures, and also low in THC. Remember, she didn't want to get her daughter stoned. She found a small amount at a Denver dispensary. The owner was surprised that anyone would even want it.
They said it's funny because no one buys this, that was the general consensus, that nobody wanted it. It didn't have any effect.
Paige paid $800 for a small bag and took it home.
I had a friend that was starting a business making medicine, and I said, "Can you help me extract the medicine from this bag of marijuana?" I measured it with a syringe and squirted it under her tongue. It was exciting and very nerve-wracking.
Holding Charlotte in her arms, Paige waited. An hour ticked by, and then another, and then another.
She didn't have a seizure that day, and then she didn't have a seizure that night.
You just sit there and
Yeah.
look at your watch. And
Right, I thought, this is crazy. And then she didn't have one the next day, and then the next day, and I thought, she would have had 100 by now. And I just thought, this is insane.
I remember how happy Paige was. Like, it's really working. I can't believe it. Yeah, that was pretty amazing to hear.
It had worked. Charlotte was the first of those kids. Late spring 2012, she tried the Stanley Special Marijuana, and again, it worked.
I can't tell you what that means to us.
Get your dozen in a little bit.
If it doesn't get you, something's wrong with you. She lived her life in a catatonic state. Now her parents get to meet her for the first time. What a revelation.
The child who'd had 300 seizures a week was now down to just one every 7 days.
Pitter pat tiptoe.
When I first met Charlotte, March of 2013, it was 1 year after that first dose of marijuana. Achoo! After almost 2 years on a feeding tube, she was now eating on her own. Yellow? She was talking, even walking.
Yeah, Lucy said please.
And while scientists are still at the very early stages of knowing if this is actually happening, I can tell you it was remarkable to see her progress. In the 3 months since we first met her, we saw a change. She was now talking more.
Say, puppy.
She's horseback riding. Good girl. She even rides a bike on her own. And the special strain made for Charlotte is now named for her. It's Charlotte's Web.
It is Charlotte's plant.
It's Charlotte's plan. Not anymore. Now it's for all the children.
More than 41 children are using Charlotte's Web here in Colorado. All of them are reporting significant seizure reduction. And there are dozens more on a wait list, hoping, praying that a plant could change their lives, just like it did for Charlotte.
Now you think about that, you see the stigma that the marijuana plant had. Now it's doing some good. I mean, I wouldn't give anybody regular marijuana. I wouldn't do it, as I wouldn't want to get in one high. But if they can produce a marijuana plant without the narcotic effect, I would use it, and I use a lot of it. I normally have up to a gallon of this in my place every day. And I give it to all of my patients, not just for seizures. I give it as a general tonic because it really works, not just for seizures, but cancer and arthritis and many other things. So I was very impressed with that, and I was like most people. I was opposed to it until I began to do research and seeing that it is the difference between regular marijuana and the cannabidiol. Here's another case. This little girl was having 40 to 50 seizures a day.
But it was absolutely horrifying. I mean, to see her in a seizure state, not being able to think or do anything, not knowing what that meant, was absolutely horrifying in every way.
Today, Gwen is a different girl. Alex, like any parent, needed answers.
I felt I had two choices. One was to completely go mental breakdown. Two was to kind of delve into it and understand what was happening to her.
She was diagnosed with epilepsy and was having around 40 to 50 seizures a day. They ranged from tonic to myoclonic.
Even if she wasn't having a seizure we could see, she was having constant epileptic seizure activity in her brain.
Called subclinical seizures. Because of the frequency, these are the ones that could cause brain damage. They did CT scans right away, and the results of the EEGs were alarming.
Almost constant subclinical seizure activity, which means there was basically, in layman's terms, misfiring going on all the time.
She was on 9 different medications.
Kept hoping the next one would work, the next one would work.
Despite all of her doctor's efforts, none improved the subclinical activity.
Can I get a high?
At the age of 2, Gwenny was developmentally stuck at a 4-month-old level. Alex then decided to take his daughter's health into his own hands and read everything he could find about epilepsy.
I was looking to understand what was happening to my daughter. I was looking to see if there was something that hadn't been thought of or had been ignored because of some other factor. And along that journey, I came across cannabis.
Ah, cannabis. It's a hot topic right now in the health community, with tons of people like Alex coming forth with their success stories.
So to begin with, we had to get a prescription because I was very committed to doing things in a as legal manner as possible. I really wanted to be able to have her doctors, her neurologists follow her progress.
But admittedly, they didn't know enough about the use of cannabis as treatment.
If nothing else is working and this might work, let's try it.
Only one of Gwenny's doctors agreed to write the prescription based off the trust and faith that he had in Alex and his thorough research. But there was one problem. At the time, you could only legally purchase cannabis in its dry form, meaning you had to smoke it.
I mean, that's an archaic law. The fact that a child would be asked in any way to ingest a medicine in an inhalation smoked vaporized form, it's ridiculous.
Not to mention, specifically trying to dose an inhalation would be pretty hard.
It's a fat-soluble substance, so you can make it into an oil-based extract concentrate.
For Alex, there was a lot of trial and error.
It was difficult to navigate, and at first it was illegal to make it into the oil, to administer it and dose it and titrate it to her.
Since then, the Supreme Court of Canada has ruled to change the marijuana medical access regulations to remove the word dried from its definition of marijuana, allowing to take it in different forms.
So last January, she'd been on cannabis oil for 5 weeks, and we didn't see the seizure for 5 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, no seizures, and then we went for an EEG, and it showed no epileptic activity. I was like, wow, like this is the first thing that actually helped her.
A great moment for the Repetskis. Gwenny was starting to show signs of improvement.
She was happier, she was becoming ticklish.
They went to go see her doctor and discuss her latest EEG.
They couldn't believe it, that there was no epileptic activity on the EEG. So I gave the doctor a hug.
She's made huge strides in just a year.
The fact that we're not scared that she's constantly having a seizure has been amazing for us, because whereas my wife would be up all night watching the monitor or sleeping in her bed or having her in our bed, just waiting for that seizure, we don't have to do that anymore. Her brother Damien is now experiencing somewhat of a normal sibling relationship.
Alex knows this is in no way a cure for her, and she still has many challenges to face, but the bottom line is she's been seizure-free for over a year, and her quality of life has increased.
She's having fun, and she's developing, and her quality of life has improved.
And it was just a simple thing like that. You know, and you think about all these smart people that go to the university, that do all this chemical analysis, that do all of this stuff. And here's a backroom mom and dad figured out how to cure their child, where all these brilliant people couldn't come up with it. And I tell you, we better learn not to trust in the arm of flesh. And so there are other things out there that can be discovered, and that simple people that will follow a simple plan will find the answers. And that's why people are baffled when they said that you can cure cancer and these big hospitals, big universities can't do it. They said, no, it's not possible. Where's the scientific validation? Where's the scientific validation that this cannabis stopped these seizures? They still not convinced that it stopped it. Even with all the evidence, the medical system still do not endorse that as a perfect recipe for stopping seizures. It's about the money. It is. It's about the money. And it is a medical monopoly, a union. And a union is designed to keep keep money coming in to fund his whole enterprise. And so, and people are just commodities, that's all. We are a product, and we can be replaced. And so they just use us to make money. That's all it is. So it's a sad thing that these children and many more are suffering and dying because the medical system is more concerned about making money than they are actually trying to find some solutions. Because it is a very elite group of men and women that have achieved a medical license, because they are set aside as some of the smartest people in the world. And they have invested in that, and they expect to get paid. So we, the backroom mom and dad, they think we're idiots, talking about this little herb can do this, or this diet can do this. They don't want to hear that. Mm-mm. Cannabis oil from hemp seed as a dietary supplement start by taking, you need to start by taking it as recommended. Some recommend taking about 9 drops on the tongue once or twice a day. Others you can take up to a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon twice a day. It depends on the strength of it. That's really what it is. At the same token, I combine the hemp oil with another antispasmodic tonic, and I make my own antispasmodic tonic. And I use 1 cup of honey, half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 3 ounces of fresh lemon juice, a half a teaspoon of peppermint, 2 bulbs of garlic, 2 small bulbs of onion, 2 ounces of horseradish root, a half a cup of fructose. And I mix all that together and blend that up together. And you take a half a teaspoon as needed. That just helps a lot with your respiration. That helps along with the cannabis oil. And this is another very good one, anti-seizure tonic. Is where I take lily of the valley, mistletoe, mugwort, skullcap, skunk cabbage, cayenne pepper, and valerian. I mix all that together into a powder, And it also has cayenne pepper in it also. And you give that, to a person throughout the day. And that can help a lot also. This is an herb called the burning bush. And not everyone has the advantage of having cannabis. And so there are other things that can substitute for the cannabis. And that's the burning bush plant. People use the leaves and the roots to make medicine. The burning bush is used for digestive tract disorder, including cramps and stomach problem. It's also good for worms in the intestines. Women take the burning bush to stop their menstruation as a birth control. It is also quite useful dealing with epileptics and seizures, spasms. Also for fluid retention, baldness, and liver disease. There's another plant that's very close to that, so you make sure that you're dealing with the burning bush. So just don't go by their physical appearance. Make sure you can distinguish the difference. And a good diet would be one of apples, strawberries, peaches, apricot, and what I do is I give them protein. I make my own fish out of tofu and own crab meat out of tofu. I make my own. And that works really good to get them a little extra protein. In Genesis, the first chapter, verse 27, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, God created him, male and female. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it. And have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat, should be for food. So all the food that God gave us have a seed, all of it. Because all the food that God made had a seed. Now, if you have a food that do not have a seed, God didn't make it. Okay, so there's a lot of things in this world God had nothing to do in making it. It's a counterfeit. It is an amalgamation. It's to pervert the truth. And it is based in deception. The devil is a master of deception. And so he would use things to deceive us. And throughout our lifetime, we thought we was eating grapes, but was eating a counterfeit. It looked like a grape. It tastes like a grape, but it's not a grape. All right? Because it do not have a seed. And same with your melons and many other things. And if it cannot replicate or grow another fruit from itself, it do not have the vital forces to help you. So we're living off of empty calories. We're living off of junk food. You can take a potato and you can cut it up into chunks and you can grow another potato, a potato stalk from it. You can take that potato and make a French fry of it, put it in the ground, you can't grow nothing from it. They're the same thing, but one has been deprived of his strength and vital forces, and it will rot in the ground. And it won't take long for it to rot. But if you take that potato, dry it out, plant it, in the right season, it's going to grow a plant. You take that white potato, roast it, cook it, whatever you want to do, French fry it, put it in the ground, it's going to rot. It will not grow another plant. That's what's happening to us. We are living on dead food, and it is witchcraft To live on dead food is simply like telling the living to live with the dead, or to communicate with the dead. That's spiritualism. Because you're asking the dead to do something that the dead can't do. And the dead cannot give life. The dead is absent of life. And so that is simply asking an impossibility. To ask that dead, empty food would supply us the nourishment so we can have a healthy life, and expect that is an impossibility. And when we get sick, we blame, well, that's the cards God dealt me. It runs in my family. I don't know, maybe God meant for me to have this problem. And we console ourselves with that craziness. And it's just the fulfillment of the deception of the devil. Yes.
So you are eating as much as possible raw food?
About 85%. About 85%, yes. So we eat a little different, but we eat the way we eat, and the Spirit of Prophet said we should eat. We eat our heavy meal in the morning, and we eat our light meal in the afternoon. And that's the way it's laid out. And it makes so much sense like that. We're so used to eating a continental breakfast. Your toast and your eggs and your jelly and your cereals and your fruit. That's the way you do it. But really, that's not the best way. And then we eat our heavy meal in the evening after we have worked hard. Now we want to sit back, eat a heavy meal, and fall off to sleep. Looks like you should eat your heavy meal in the morning where you can work it off. And then eat your light meal before you go to bed at night. That way you won't go to bed and have all these dreams and visions, and you wake up thinking God gave you a vision. Dreams come from two sources. It comes from inspiration and from what? Overwork. You overwork in your digestive system, and then you come up with all these imaginations and dreams and stuff. That ain't from God. It's not. Did I see another hand? So I know it's difficult because the world have amalgamated most of the food, so most of the food you buy is already, amalgamated. And you got to have something to eat. And I understand that. I get those foods too. But I'm not expecting no good results to come from it. I mean, when I go and live on seedless foods, I'm not telling myself, oh, boy, this is rich in nutrients and vitamins and enzymes. I know I'm eating a bag of potato chips. Okay, that's when I get a bowl of grapes with no seeds in it. To me, that's equate to a bag of cookies. All right, a bag of chips. I don't expect to get nothing out that bag of chips but just a good taste. I'm not expecting nothing else. So anyway, we're going to stop with that. That concludes that small. And I'm going to try to have these little small ones so I can increase, because our time is running out. And I want to share more with you on some different possibilities. We're going to look now at fibroids. We're going to look at fibroids and our fibroid chart. So each day I try to come up with something short, then I try to go to the charts, and that way I can get through more of these charts. Otherwise, we're not going to get through them. Our time is going to run out on us. In the fibroid chart, briefly, I would explain it. You would have to turn over to the second page to see the beginning of the fibroid chart. At the kind of in the middle of the page, you see some numbers from 1 to 14. That's the beginning of the fibroid chart. Those numbers, 1 to 14, represent the hours during the day. Over on the left-hand column, you see some different health issues. At the bottom, you see no monthly period. And then above that, you see a normal period from 3 to 5 days. And that's what it should run, about 3 to 5 days. If it runs beyond that or more than that, if it go beyond 7 days, then you got a heavy monthly period. That means that if you continue to run over 7 days with your monthly cycle, you're going to develop fibroid lumps because your estrogen level is too high. That do not mean you have cancer. It just simply means that the estrogenic level is too high. And if you develop these little tiny fibroids and you keep eating high estrogen foods, eventually you're going to develop a lump. And you may have one large fibroid and you may not have any bleeding at all, but it's just large. But if you continue to eat that way, you would also develop much larger tumors, and now you still may not have any bleeding. Soon after that, you may have many small fibroids. And then, with all these fibroids come bleeding, hemorrhaging. And now you may be standing on your period 10 days or 2 weeks, and it's very heavy flow. With a heavy flow, you may end up being anemic. And if you're being anemic, you're going to need a blood transfusion. And then 5 or more large fibroids, and she's 40 plus 40 with bleeding. That means her estrogen level is steadily increasing, going up. Now it's so bad that she's not even getting off her monthly cycle. It's staying on around the clock. And she either got to stay on blood transfusions or she's going to be weak and tired. So she chooses to have surgery to have the fibroids removed or get a hysterectomy. And let's turn back over to the beginning of the first page, on the next page. What begin is, what is fibroids? Fibroids are muscular tumors that grow in the wall of the uterus or the womb. Fibroids almost always is benign or non-cancerous. Fibroids can grow as a single tumor, or there can be many of them in the uterus. They can be small as an apple seed or as big as a grapefruit. In usual cases, they can become very, very large. And the reason they're getting so large is they're feeding them, just like a baby feed off the nourishment of the mother. Fibroids are feeding off of estrogen. The more estrogen a woman takes in, the bigger that fibroid is going to become. About 20% to 80% of the women develop fibroids by the time they reach 50 years of age. And the reason is that every day they're inundating their system with all this estrogenic foods that is feeding those little fibroids until they grow to be really large. Fibroids are most common in women in their 40s and early 50s. The reason for that is that a young woman uses up her estrogen, or metabolizes her estrogen much better. A woman, by the time she gets 40 years old or 50 years old, her body's slowing down. Her ovaries are not making as much estrogen. So that means to compensate, other organs and body fat and other elements must take up the slack that the ovaries can do. Since the ovaries cannot make enough estrogen, her body is so amazing that it will convert body fat into estrogen. She has more body fat by the time she reaches 40 and 50 because she's slowing down. She's tired. She's tired because she's anemic. Her metabolism is slow. And so now, as she consumes, she's not burning those calories because she's not as active as she was when she was young. And so she is not as active. She's storing those calories. She's gaining weight. And so with the weight come is the increase of body fat. And the body fat now is being converted to estrogen. And you really don't want that type of estrogen. You really want estrogen made by the ovaries. But because the ovaries cannot make it, then the body will revert to a primitive form of aromatase. Aromatase means to convert one subject to another, one element to another element, to satisfy the body needs. And so we see enough in one element that, oh yeah, I can convert you over to what I need, even though it's not what you need. Aromatase. And so not all women with fibroids have symptoms. Women who do have symptoms often find that fibroids are hard to live with. And that's because, if they're bleeding fibroids, they're really hard because she could bleed every day. Some have pain and heavy bleeding. Fibroids also can put pressure on the bladder, causing frequent urination, or rectum, causing rectal pressure. They can also cause the abdominal area to become enlarged, making a woman look like she's pregnant. And she started wondering, where's my stomach getting so big? And they said, girl, you're eating too much. It's not that. It's not from eating. It's because those fibroids are growing. And it's like a baby. Fibroids use the same system, the same organ as a baby do. And so it's hooked up to that mother, and it needs nourishment to grow. But fibroids, they're growing off the estrogen. And estrogen is feeding them, and they're growing. And, well, who get fibroids? There are factors that can increase a woman's risk of developing fibroids. Fibroids become more common as the woman ages, especially during 30s and 40s, up through menopause. After menopause, the fibroids usually shrink. That's the good news. The good news, if a woman could reach menopause or induce menopause, you're going to shrink the fibroids. Because fibroids have to have estrogen. So if you can cut off the estrogen supply, you're going to shrink those fibroids. And then if you limit or make it difficult for that body to convert other things to estrogen, you're going to definitely shrink those fibroids. So in other words, you could reach 50 years old and you go into menopause and you say, okay, I'm in the menopause, now these fibroids are supposed to shrink. But they're growing. They're growing because your calorie intake has increased, your fat intake has increased. So it's living off of the estrogen through aromatase system being converted to estrogen from other things. And so now it's making more estrogen than your ovaries ever made. But it's not the type of estrogen that you really need. There are different types of estrogen. And so we need a very weak form of estrogen, not a very hard estrogen. So family history, having family members with fibroids increases your risk. If you're a woman's mother, if a woman's mother had fibroids, her risk of having them is about 3 times higher than the average. So if your mother has fibroids, you are 3 times more likely to have them because your mother's genes have been passed on to you. Ethnic groups, especially African American women, are more likely to develop fibroids than white women. Now, why is that? Well, because in some culture, a skinny woman can't tell a man nothing. You know that? They don't want that. And then in some cultures, a big woman can't tell a man nothing. Are you following me? But in most of the developing countries, a big woman is the queen of the camp. She's it. I mean, the bigger you are, the better they like it. So, and the reason for that is somewhat vanity, because a big woman is produced more estrogen, and that makes her more lovable. And the men like that. You know, they love it. So, and so they like a heavy set women. And a lot of that is in the African culture. And so, but it has its downsides. The bigger the woman may be, the greater her chances of health complications. All right? It is, because that increases her chances of having some major problems. And so we should not be, oversized. We should not be. We should be, as small as we can be for the sake of health. It's not easy, though. It's really not easy. Obese women who are overweight are at a higher risk for developing fibroids. Can anybody tell me why, based on what I just said? Why is obese women at a greater risk of developing fibroids? That fat is being converted to estrogen through a system called aromatase. Yes, that's exactly right. And that estrogen is going to cause tumors, breast problem, uterine problem, cervical problem, endometrial problem, a lot of female problems. Okay, heavy set women have a risk 2 to 3 times greater than the average sized woman. Eating habits. Eating lots of red meat, beef, ham is a link with higher risk of fibroids than eating green vegetables. Seems to protect the woman from developing fibroids. Now, let's look at that now. We all said none of us eat ham and red meat. Okay, praise God. But, we got a but there. Do you eat tofu? Do you eat veggie meat? Yeah, we do. Some of us. We eat veggie meat. We eat tofu. We eat fake meat. All right. Now they got Beyond Meat. Have y'all ever tried the Beyond Meat? They got the Beyond Burgers now. Beyond. I mean, it's off the chart in America. Matter of fact, this type of veggie burger is outgrowing McDonald's and everybody, and now the fast food Burger Kings, they are putting it in there to replace it. And they said in a little bit, it will replace animal meat. Because people now are buying it just at the same rate as they were buying regular meat. And it's amazing. Me and my son bought one just to test it. And you bite into this thing, and it's red like blood in it. They put stuff in it where it looked like it's got blood in it, And it tastes just like meat. And very few people can tell the difference of it. And it's all made from plant-based food. So, but I'm bringing this out that ham, beef, increase your risk of fibroids. When you eat a burger made from a cow, a pig, your body, your taste bud tastes and says, oh, that's some good beef. I just love it. You swallow it, taste is gone. Now it get in the stomach and your gastric juice separate it and break it down, and your cells are sitting there waiting to eat. As it breaks down, it separates the fat and the protein and all that, and then your cells eat. And your cells say, protein, fats, and carbohydrates. It don't care nothing about no beef. It don't care anything about no pork. It's saying, fats, protein, and carbohydrates. Converted to amino acids, converted to fatty acids, converted to carbohydrates. All right? Now you get a veggie burger, a tofu burger, a fake burger. And you eat it and you say, boy, this tastes just like the real thing. This is delicious. Remind me of chicken. You swallow it, the taste is gone. Your cells said, fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Converted to amino acids, fatty acids, and carbohydrates. It don't know the difference. And it don't care about the difference. The same mechanism that digests and assimilate the animal meat is the same system that digests and assimilate the fake meat. So the same problem is being replicated. The same identical problem. Cancer and tumors and pulmonary problems are from eating animal food. We can say the same thing from eating fake meat that pretending and perpetrating to be the real thing. All right? Now, and when you eat your vegetables and your fruit in a raw state, your cells get that carbohydrate. And those carbohydrates will not trick them. They say, carbohydrates. And they eat them and they don't have that same effect. Because really, if you take a veggie burger, it's made of fat, protein, fat, protein, and seasoning. That's really what it is. If you take an animal burger, it's fat, protein, and seasoning. And they all are chemically the same. And when you fry them, you make it worse. Now, if you ate it in a raw state, hey, that's fine. But the minute you fry your vegetables, fry your baked meat, you have duplicated animal meat, and your body will treat it the same way. All right? So be mindful that if you're going to eat fake meat, eat it on a very limited basis, because if you eat too much of it, you're actually eating the same way of eating too much animal food. Today, most of my patients that come to my clinic are Seventh-day Adventists, are vegetarians. When I first got started 30 years ago back, most of my clients was people in the world. They can't even come now because we stay filled up with our folks. And they come there and they say, well, I'm a vegan. I don't know why I got this problem. I don't know why it happened. And once we investigate, we find out that they've been living. They go to these camp meetings and they come back with boxes of this fake meat. They load up by the box of Big Franks and links and sausages and all kind of stuff, wham and you name it. And they eat this stuff 3 times a day. They eat it for breakfast, they eat it for lunch, and they eat it for dinner. And they say, I'm a vegetarian. People that eat meat don't eat it that much. We actually eat more food than meat eaters eat. Next time you measure how much a meat eater eats, he don't come close to the volume of food that a vegetarian eats. And so that's one of the big problems. I'm not condemning eating these fake meats, but I'm saying it should be the smallest amount of our food consumption. And it should not be done on a regular basis, and it's totally taboo to fry. Frying, it should never be introduced into our system. It is the worst junk you can put in your body is to fry. But frying to me is nothing but saying I am controlled by my appetite, because frying makes everything taste good.
But baking is okay.
Baking is good. Baking, broiling is good. But the minute you fry, I don't care what it is. You bake some gluten. It don't have the same taste. Fried, it tastes like real meat.
So if you bake like potatoes or sweet potatoes in the oven,
That's good.
it's okay.
Yeah.
And you do it without oil, or you put it?
Well, the healthiest way to do it is to bake it, and while it's still warm, spray some oil on it, apply some oil on it. And it will taste just like you cooked it in oil when you do that.
Should I put something in a pan and give water in it instead of oil? Would that be okay?
That'll be fine.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
Oil is a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, but keep in mind that if you go on an oil-free diet, you're limiting your brain cells from having electrical impulses. And so you're going to end up with a nervous condition or some type of mental disorder or some type of severe hormonal problem. your skin going to get dry, your hair going to get brittle because you're not getting enough fatty acids. So you do need oil, but you don't need fried oil. You need cold press oils. And that's the difference. If you eat too many oils, you're going to get too much weight. That's where the weight come on, from oils. And they take these potatoes and they put butter on it, or they take potato and put olive oil on it. You're going to gain some weight. That's what they do in the army. You know, they give you beans and they give you potatoes. Every day you got beans and potatoes. And they put some oil on it, or some butter on it. And you get your baked potato, slap some butter on it, and it tastes delicious. You increase those calories. And so let's go back to the charts here. On page 3 of the chart, you see I have fat 20%. 20 plus, mind you, plus 20. Protein is plus 15. I'm going to skip through it. Eggs plus 20. Fried foods are plus 20. Cow's milk is plus 15. Soy milk is plus 15. So now, why would cow's milk and soy milk be the same? What are the difference? Is there any difference between cow's milk and soy milk when it comes to fibroids? There's no difference. There's a big difference when it comes to nutrition. There's a big difference is that soy milk is much healthier than cow's milk. But I'm not talking about nutrition. I'm talking about fibroids. What makes fibroids, not what makes you healthy. And then when you look at it like that, then soy milk has no advantage over cow's milk. None at all. Because soy milk is high in estrogenic properties. Cow's milk is high in estrogenic properties. And so they both will increase your estrogenic level. Then we look at having 1 bowel movement a day is 15 plus. Having 2 to 3 is 15 manners. Well, your body is anaerobic. It will consume your waste for nourishment if it be retained in the system. So if you are constipated, having only 1 bowel movement, and you are constipated having 1 bowel movement a day, that means that waste is a protein in the system. Your body will reuse that waste. It will reuse it. See, your body do that anyway. Your red blood cells are recycled. Your body's a recycling plant. So when your red blood cells die, it takes those dead red blood cells and take it to your spleen and house it in your spleen so that it can make new red blood cells from that. Your body's fantastic for doing that. Your cells are circulating around trying to find any usable or edible material floating in the bloodstream. And when they find it, they examine it and say, okay, that's edible. Let's use that. And if it's toxin floating around, fecal matter floating around, they check it out. Hey, we can use that. We can convert that. It converted to nourishment. It's practicing cannibalism because the body is programmed for survival. So that means you must reduce the toxicity in your system as much as possible. Having 1 bowel movement a day is enhancing and aiding that system. Exercise. No exercise is 10 plus. Now, exercise increases your metabolism so that you can break down your food so that a lot of it is used up instead of circulating in the system. So eating less than 50% raw food. So if you're eating less than 50%, that means that you're eating 50% of what? Cooked food. And if you're eating cooked food, believe me, you're not cooking that food just in water and vegetables. Because if you're going to cook it in water and vegetables, you're not going to eat it. You're going to have to put something in that water, right? To make it taste good. So if you're going to cook greens or callaloo or potatoes, you're just going to put water and vegetables? No. You're putting something in there. Because the minute you cook it, it will lose its taste, its natural taste. So now you got to put your seasoning in it and whatever it is to dress it up. But if you ate it raw, it has its natural flavors. You don't have to put all that stuff on it. So, but all that stuff that you put on it may not be healthy. Okay, let's go to that next column where it said being overweight is 15 plus. That additional body fat increases the possibility of using your fat as estrogen. And that could bring on heavy bleeding, which is 20 plus. Heavy bleeding is where you're producing too much estrogen. And since you had that body fat every day of your life, you're constantly feeding estrogen every day, systematically, and that's increasing too much estrogen. And then the next one is pesticides and hormones. 95% of our toiletries is made from petrochemicals. Most of our sprays, deodorants, most of our soap, our toiletries is made from petrochemicals. Petro means petroleum. That's what it means. Petro means petroleum. So, and we know that in itself is carcinogenic. You wouldn't think to go in there and take a bath in motor oil or gasoline. But you do it. You go in there and you take this commercial soap and you put it in your bath water and you take a bath.
Are there some good alternatives?
What was that? Use olive oil.
Only olive oil to clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, olive oil will moisture the skin. There are plenty of natural things you can do. Now, the girl that's coming here tomorrow, boy, she is an expert in making toiletries. Now, hopefully y'all can persuade them to let her teach some classes in how to make soap and different toiletries. She's one of the best in the world at it. And she is good. She's coming here. She worked with us. And she has her own restaurant, but she make a lot of toiletries and stuff. So maybe she can give y'all a class how to make your own soap. And there are so many soaps that you can make. Clay soap, olive oil soap, liquid soaps. There are many different soaps you can make from scratch. The old people a long time ago used to make soap, outside, lye soap. And we've gotten away from that culture of making our own soap. But a lot of women are picking it back up. When people come to my school, they have to learn how to make a product because I want them to learn how to subsidize their income so that, they can have a way to get away from their regular jobs. Okay, so petrochemicals, all petrochemicals, such as creams, lotions, shampoo, perfume, hairspray, room deodorizers, all of those are petrochemicals, which mimic estrogen. That means it's close enough that it can trick your body to think it's estrogen and increase your estrogenic level. And we're doing this every day. Every day we want to smell good and we want to look good, so we constantly covering ourselves and bathing ourselves in motor oil. And we don't want to think it's motor oil, but it is. It is deodorized motor oil. Okay, so now, and then Premarin. Premarin? That's horse urine. A pregnant horse urine. You look it up, Google it. Should have somebody in here Googling it right now. Premarin is made, it's a drug. They take pregnant horse urine and they make an estrogen drug out of it. Because the pregnant horses are high in estrogen. And they give it to women that are going through menopause. And they don't know they're taking horse urine. You wouldn't think of taking a horse urine in. You wouldn't think about it. But, and you trust your good-natured doctor. Problem is, he's working for the union. And he have to obey his union boss. If he want to keep his job. So, oh boy, I tell you, we've been duped as a people. Now, what can we do? In your spare time, please look up Primrose so you can stop. Don't let them folks put that on you. Okay, they got plants where they got these pregnant horses, and they gather up this urine and they convert it to a drug. Okay, wild yam, this is what you can do about it. Wild yam is high in progesterone. Progesterone. Chasteberries are high in progesterone. Dun Quai is high in progesterone. Easter lily is high in progesterone. And then, if you don't want to buy all of those things, you can get progesterone cream. Wild yam progesterone cream. Now, why are we recommending progesterone? Because progesterone is a counterpart to estrogen. That means the progesterone will neutralize and bring down estrogen if your estrogen level is too high. The natural system do that. Your estrogen go up and your progesterone go down. Your progesterone goes up, it forces your estrogen down. So the more progesterone you have, the more it can suppress your estrogen. Yes?
I would like to know, so when someone has a low estrogen level and takes wild yam cream or liquid, whatever, does the body try to balance it well, or is just the estrogen level will go up higher?
No, if a woman estrogen level is too low, she's going to have a low libido.
Yeah.
Low libido. That means she don't want to be bothered. She don't want to be bothered. Just leave me alone. I'm old and I'm sick of that. Okay. She don't have the energy for all of that anymore. That's finished. Okay. All right. Now, it also affects her physiologically too. It really does. It makes her body more abrasive. I'm trying to speak, because he's feminist. I'm speaking this for children. It makes a woman's body more abrasive. Her vaginal wall become real thin, and so it's more inflamed and more abrasive. You know what I'm talking about? When something is very sensitive and dry and thin, you're going to experience more pain and discomfort. And the lubricant is not there. And so it's not a pleasant experience. And so this is why the libido must be elevated somewhat, and it prevents that from taking place. Also, it affects her bones. When the libido drops, that's a sign that her estrogen level is too low. She's going to suffer from osteoporosis, brittle bone syndrome. She's going to do that. And there are many other problems she may also suffer with by the way of having that low libido. I don't care what age a woman may be, she needs to stay active. If she stay active and walk and exercise a lot, she will stay young and useful. A woman has a big advantage over a man. She really does. She can stay young and useful many years beyond a man can. But she got to stay active. If she don't stay active, her body will succumb to that, and then she'll have problems. Woman is already genetically stronger than a man. She outlive a man 5 to 10 years anyway. So she's stronger than a man. Her body's stronger. She'd have to be, because her body goes through so much trauma having babies, so God made her stronger than the man. There's no man could handle what a woman can go through. I don't know a man. I know I couldn't. It wouldn't be no humans in the world if they depend on me. If I had to do it like a woman, I said, no way. No way. So a woman is a special creature. They really are. I thank God for them. I thank God I'm a man too. Did I see a hand? Yes.
So the progesterone is helping the bones to stay in a proper way.
It is. And the skin and the hair texture, it helps so many ways with her. So, yeah, you want to do that. It's just going to help her with her. Because, you know, when your woman goes through menopause, she can have psychiatric problems, mental problems, you know, emotional problems. Because those hormones are all out of whack. And they go through depression. Sometimes they'll cry. Sometimes they'll laugh. Sometimes they're hot splashes. It drives them mad. Not all women go through that severe, but some go through postpartum depression, where they could, you know, that's when definitely they got some serious issues with their progesterone level. So now let's look at some other things here. Flaxseed is one of your highest sources of plant-based estrogen. See, soy get a bad rap, but flaxseed is worse than soy. If you're concerned about estrogen, if you're concerned about plant-based estrogen, flax is going to be worse than soy. Okay?
So flax seeds are worse than soya. Soya to eat is better than flax seeds.
Now, I'm not saying flaxseed are bad. In that context, yeah. Yeah.
It's another form of estrogen?
It is.
And it's the bad form.
No, it's a good form of estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
Flaxseed is a good form of estrogen if you need estrogen.
Okay.
Now, if you don't need estrogen, you need to eat flaxseed in a very moderate way. Okay? But if you have extremely high estrogen, you may want to stay away from soy and flaxseed.
Okay. But what about the mixture between soy milk and rice milk? We are drinking that often.
Well, the soy is a high phytoestrogen. And so you're going to have to drink it in moderation. See, plant-based estrogen can help you or can hurt you. You have to consume it in moderation. If you overindulge in it, if a man drink a glass of soy milk every day, 1 or 2 glasses of soy milk every day, he's going to be impotent by the time he gets 50 years old. Yeah. He's going to be impotent. If he drank 1 or 2 glasses of soy milk every day, he's going to be impotent. And he's going to blame it on old age, or he's going to blame it on his prostate. But that soy is phytoestrogen. Consuming a large amount of phytoestrogen, it will suppress your testosterone. Because consuming a lot of estrogen foods will dominate and convert your testosterone through aromatase process. It will convert your testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. It's going to convert it. In other words, it will take your testosterone from the man, mix it with estrogen because you got too much of it, and convert it to another hormone called dihydrotestosterone, which means two hormones, estrogen and testosterone mixed together. But that estrogen is going to dominate, and now it's going to transform that man. It's going to change him. And that's why I recommend, if instead of drinking soy milk, play around with some of the other milk. Oatmeal milk, rice milk, almond milk, and then soy milk. But don't get in a rut where I have to have soy milk every day. And one of the nicest milk is oatmeal milk. I mean, that's the one that's really catching on right now. Women used to give oatmeal milk when a woman could not lactate. And she could not produce breast milk. They would cook a pot of oatmeal and make it good and soupy, and then they would blend it up and squeeze out the juice and make their own oatmeal milk out of it. And it would have a mother that's nursing drink that milk, and that would increase their production of breast milk. And the reason for that is the oat milk is high in progesterone, and the progesterone will stimulate her to lactate. Okay, so right here it said at the top of page 4, it says keep your estrogen down below 1,000 cc daily. And then I'm not going to go through all. It's a little complicated, so I'm not going to go through all that. But what you want to do, you want to limit your amount of estrogenic foods. If you consume too much of it, then you're going to cause problems. Person should be eating about 80% raw. And I've graded all of these foods with the amount of estrogen in them and whether they are good, high estrogen, or a mild, or low estrogen. The number determines that. If it's 20-15, it's high. If it's 5 to 10, it's low to mild. And so if you're eating foods in the 15 and 20s and even 30s, you're consuming too much of the estrogenic foods, even if they are plant-based estrogen. You need to cut back, get down to between 5 to 10. 5 to 10 would be low phytoestrogen to moderate phytoestrogen. Bring it down to that, and that will protect you and bring your estrogen level down. Okay, let's go over to page 6. And on page 6, it's really basically the same thing. It's just dealing with the low estrogen. Now on page 5 at the bottom, it said low estrogen foods. And it would be from your manners. All your manners would be low. So your low 5 and to your high manner, to 20 manners will tell you the amount of low estrogen in those foods. So if it's 5, it's real low estrogen. If it's 20, it's really high. In low estrogen. Okay, so all these foods on page 6 are low estrogen. So if you're working with somebody with fibroids, a breast tumor, a tumor that is stimulated by estrogen, you want to let them consume a lot of these foods here on page 6. And that way it would bring down the estrogen with the foods. Now, at the bottom of page 6, you see it said food high in estrogen.
May I ask you something? The diagnosis, is it telling if it is an estrogen breast cancer or fibroid? Are they telling this in the physician's diagnosis?
Okay, now you said if it's high estrogen or what now?
The cancer, fibroid or breast cancer.
How do you know that if the cause of the cancer is because of high estrogen?
Yeah, you have to go and get a test done to know it. To medically know it. Yeah. They can run a test, a hormonal test, and they can tell you if your hormones are out of balance. That could be causing that. Or they can do a biopsy of the tumor, and that would tell it. Or they can do a blood test to check your hormones out. It could be. To do a biopsy, it could be if it's a cancerous lump, you could open the door for metastasis. But you got to ask, well, why are you getting a biopsy in the first place? You're getting a biopsy so they can tell you to take chemotherapy or whatever it is. Well, if you're not going to take chemo, why get a biopsy? If you say, well, I'm not going to be taking no chemo, then why get the biopsy? Because that's all the biopsy is, to let you know if you got cancer. If you find out you got cancer, what is the option? What was your choices? Chemo, radiation, surgery. If you're not going to do those things, then why even put your body through that? You simply become proactive and do what you know to do. Treat it as if it is cancer. Instead of, taking an additional stress to find that out. So at the bottom it said foods high in estrogen. These foods and high estrogen foods is the food you really want to eat in very small moderation if you have an estrogenic problem. Eat it in small moderation because these foods will elevate the estrogen level. Yeah, turmeric is estrogenic, but it's good. Turmeric is very good. And you should take turmeric in as a medicine. If you have cancer, if you got a low immune system. Yeah, in moderation. But now let's face it, most people like turmeric, like put in everything they eat. Yeah. Yeah, they do. They like it in everything they eat. That's not moderation. No, that's not moderation. But now, yeah, if you took a teaspoon of turmeric about maybe 2 times a week, that would be moderation. Mm-hmm. No, not in all your food, no. Okay. Carrot juice is estrogenic, phytoestrogen. So if you had estrogenic problem, you should drink carrot juice, but drink it on extreme moderation. That means you don't want to drink a quart of carrot juice if you have breast cancer. That is estrogen stimulated. You don't want to do that. Typically, people tell you drink plenty of carrot juice if you got cancer. It depends on what type of cancer you have. If it's an estrogen-driven cancer, you don't drink that much carrot juice. You drink about 6 to 8 ounces of carrot juice maybe once or twice a week. And the reason you do that is when you drink carrot juice or eat soy, your body accepts that and be satisfied so that it rejects all other estrogen. And it won't receive no other estrogen in that will cause you problem. So if that, now, do we understand how that works? It works the same way this chart works that we did with diabetes. Over on the side over there, I don't have it written. You put on the side the different things over there in that column, different conditions. Then you evaluate, if you do an assessment of the person. You ask, what did you eat for breakfast? What did you eat for dinner? What is your lifestyle? How many bowel movements? How much water did you drink? Are you on any medication? You ask all those questions. Do you eat fried food? So on. Then you do an assessment. You write it out. You add up your pluses, subtract your minuses. Whatever you get, if it come out to be 60, you start over here. You ask them, you said, do you stay on your period longer than 7 days? And the person said, yes, I do. Then you start them up where it says from 5 to 7 days. Many small fibroids, heavy bleeding for 5 to 7 days. They'll begin right there. If they ask them and said, look, do you have heavy bleeding? They say, yes, I do. You start them at heavy bleeding. So by doing that, that's your starting point. You ask them how many days they stay on their period. Is it heavy? And then you look on here and you find something close to that. Start them right there. Once you begin right there, they say, well, yeah, I stay on my period at least 7 days. So you start them right where the 7 days at. You put a mark in that left-hand column. Then you count up 60. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. If you're on a 10-point scale. 5 point, 5, 10, 15, 20, and going on up. Once you get up to 60, that's have done an assessment of your breakfast and your lifestyle. Now your body will process all of that. Your body will start neutralizing all that estrogen. All is working on is estrogen. It starts reducing the estrogen. It takes 5 hours to bring that estrogen down, diagonally. When it comes down, that's finishes your breakfast meal. 5 hours later, you're ready for your next meal. You do an assessment. Now, say it's 50. You go 50 up. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Then 5 hours later, it comes down. At that point, that's where your estrogen level going to top out at. And that's going to let you know if it's heavy bleeding or fibroids or tumors or whatever it is. If it comes down to the normal level, then you're okay. And then you write up the program based on that. So you know if they're up there in the high area, up there where it's saying that they have many fibroids, small fibroids, and they bleed at least 7 days, and it's in that category, that means you've got to reduce some of that estrogen in their diet. You're going to have to replace that with low estrogen foods, and then you have to do some things in the treatment category that will bring down the estrogen. Add that to the program, that would automatically write up their treatment protocol. You keep doing that. They stay on there for about 1 month. You evaluate them again. You say, come back in 1 month and I'm going to check you out again. They come back. You say, yeah, it came down, but we want to get it down a little further than that. You go back and say, well, look, I'm going to add this to your program that's going to bring it down some more, and I'm going to remove this. And then they come back another 30 days. You check them out. So, hey, you're down in the normal level. Maintain that for 3 months. Let me see you in 3 months. And in 3 months, they come back, and the fibroids are gone. That's the way you do it. Any questions? Everybody understand how the chart works? The same way the diabetic chart works.
You start at 100 again?
Well, no, you start based on your evaluation. Like if I asked you, I said, can you tell me if you, how many days you start on your menstrual cycle? And you said, well, 7 days. Or I could say, do you know if you have a large fibroid? You say, I do. I start you there. It's over there in the left-hand column on page 1.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
If the person doesn't know that she has a fibroid,
Mm-hmm.
so but she had it, so and she's having a normal period,
Right.
so you bring it to normal period.
You would have to begin at normal period. If you do not know, if you don't know nothing, you start them at a normal period. Then the diet will tell what they are. Their lifestyle will make the adjustment and tell you what it is. That's if they do not know. If they're saying, well, I'm not having a monthly period, I'm beyond that. Okay, so you don't know. Do you have a fire? I don't know. You have it in the milk? No, I don't know. Start them at the normal period. And then the diet will make the adjustment. It's either going to go up high or it's going to go down too low. Any questions?
So another question. Say, according to the diet, and in the end of our calculation, the person go to many small fibroids, they have bleeding, yeah. But the person doesn't have it at the moment. That doesn't mean that she can develop it if the diet doesn't change, because not immediately you have it.
Right. I mean, it could come later.
It can come later. That's what you say. The graph also will tell you, okay, this can be your tendency, and you will have this in 10 years.
And then not all fibroids going to bleed. But it depends on the location of the fibroid. And then not all bleeding is from fibroids. It could be from polycystic ovary. It could be from endometriosis. It could be from problem with the uterus or the vagina, cervix. So there are other areas in that could cause bleeding. But most of the time when it's dealing with the woman abdominal area, it's got to deal with estrogen. If it's in the cervix, the uterus, ovaries, it's going to be, it's a fallopian tube, it's going to be there because of estrogen. It's too high. The estrogen is out of balance. Estrogen does with a woman because it gives you endometriosis, it gives you polycystic ovaries, it gives you uterine problem, uterine cancer, cervical cancer. It gives you all of that because estrogen is supposed to make things grow. And it's in the right spot for making things grow. So you have to keep that in balance. And then when the estrogen get too low, then the progesterone can cause too much problem. It can too cause cancer. Too high progesterone. If we got that, now I want to make sure we have it. We have that, right? We know how the chart works. Any questions on how it works? How to count it up, how to do an assessment, count it up, come down diagonally 5 points. If you eat between meals, you stop digestion. You have to penalize them for eating between meals, which is probably 5 to 10 points. You go up 1 square, and then you have to conclude. If they stop in 2 hours, you still got to finish out to 3 hours to come to 5 hours after the meal. If they eat between meals 3 times a day, you stop it and you penalize them.
3 times.
3 times.
Penalize them 3 times.
That's right. So you do that. You can do a 2-meal plan or you can do a 3-meal plan. So if you understand that, we're going to get through real fast because I can go through these charts real fast, and we can cover a lot of them before we conclude, at least more than I thought we would be. Yes.
I'm confused with these numbers. 10 plus 100 cc plus.
No, I don't want you to worry about that. Don't even be concerned about the cc's, because that's measuring the amount of estrogen in the plant.
Okay, so I just need the first number, 15 plus.
That's all you want. See, the cc's is letting you know. Okay, the cc is letting you know the quantity of estrogen in that particular plant. Like if it's say, let me go back to it. If it's say, and like I said, I'm not going to get much into that because that I will need a lot of time. It says the microgram of estradiol. Estradiol is estrogen, equivalent 200 cc's are 2 grams of dried herbs. I'm on page 4 at the top. So what this is measuring how much estrogen is in a food based on a quantity. And it's going to need more. I wouldn't even worry about that right now. So if it's, say, for instance, white bread, if you eat 3 slices of white bread, it's got 100 cc's. That means 100 degree amount of estrogen in those white pieces of bread. You should not go over, you should want to stay below 1,000 cc's totally if you got a problem. So you already got 100. Then if you go down to say eating cooked food has 200 cc's. So between your bread and eating cooked food, you got 300 cc's. Your limit is 1,000. So now let's go down to, petrochemicals. That's 100 cc's. Now, if you're doing that, that's 400 cc's. You shampooing your hair, that's 500 cc's. If you're eating eggs, that's what? 700 cc's. And so if you're eating a little ice cream in a while, it's 200 cc's. You at 1,000 cc's right there. And you over 1,000 cc's. So, but now if you look at it and say, well, okay, then I want to make sure I don't get that much estrogen in, you can go and say, well, eat some nuts, which is 25 cc's. I will take some carrot, which is 25. Eat some beans, legumes, which is 25 cc's. I can eat eggplants, which is 25 cc's. I can eat some soy meat, it's a 200 cc's. And now you can eat vegetables and stuff like that, which is very low cc's. You have more things you can eat that are low cc. And you can eat a variety of things and stay under 1,000. But if you're eating high estrogen food, you're going to use up that 1,000 real quick. You're going to be 2,000, 3,000, and you're still not going to be getting the quantity you want. And that's going to be too much estrogen. Do we understand that?
Yeah.
Did you get that, sister? That all the CCs are doing is measuring how much the estrogen it is based on quantity.
CC stand for? CC.
It's the quantity, that's all.
Is that grams?
Yes.
1000 cc for 1 day or for
Yes.
1 meal?
Well, it's for really that meal.
For that meal.
Mm-hmm.
I still have a question with where to start. You said yesterday we started with 100.
Mm-hmm.
We have in the first column we have like the symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't get it how to.
Okay.
How,
Now remember now that yesterday was a diabetic chart. It was dealing with diabetes. This is not dealing with diabetes. So yesterday's chart don't apply to this chart. So yesterday's chart we could start at 100. That's only with diabetes. When we deal with AIDS, it's going to be different. When we deal with breast cancer or brain cancer, the chart going to be different. So now we're looking at estrogen. We've got a whole new starting point. So with this one, I sat around and asked you, how many days you stay on your period? Well, I stay on about 7 days. I look on here and I say, okay, I'm going to start you, your beginning point between many small fibroids, heavy bleeding, 5 to 7 days. I'll start you right there on the first page.
We're starting not through a treatment, 5 to 7 days. No.
where do you find in the number?
Yes, that's where you start at. You start right there, 5 to 7 days.
On this chart.
Right. No, not on the diabetic chart. Okay, many small. Okay, now if you say, well, no, I said, what? I asked you, I'm doing an assessment. You said, I have heavy bleeding. But then I look on here and I said, I'm going to start you on the heavy bleeding. This chart will not apply to my AIDS chart, to my high blood pressure chart, my arthritis chart. They all got different places where they start at. Okay, do we understand that? Yes.
And then in the chart, the maximum of well, it was 1000, but it was probably something different. But how do we know the normal? Like where we have the last line for normal amount. How much is the
Under 1,000. Under 1,000 cc's would be normal. Anything over 1,000 will be abnormal. That's too much estrogen. For instance, it says overweight.
But in this chart here, or in this case, we are not counting the CC, but we are counting the points.
We just counted points. But because the questions came up, I want to explain it. But I'm not concerned with the CCs. But since the person asked the question, I'm trying to, simplify it. It do take a little bit more time to explain these CCs. If a person is overweight, then if they're overweight, here on page 4, it's 15 plus, but it's 200 cc's. So now, you put them on a program, they still going to be overweight, until they can reduce that weight. And so they may be overweight for 3 months. So even though you put them on a low estrogen diet, the obesity is still going to be there. But eventually, after 3 months or whatever it is, the weight going to come off, and now the 200 cc's will come down. And now it will not be 1,000 because it's going to come down as you lose weight. So it's not something you're going to fix instantly. It's going to gradually reduce that estrogen out of the system. Okay, do we have that? Any questions?
There's also another chart for the progesterone, but here now we are focusing on estrogen.
Yeah, this feminine will cover that when it said low estrogen. Mm-hmm. This cover low, progesterone is low. Yeah. High is estrogen. Mm-hmm. So it will cover progesterone. Anything that is minus it's going to be progesterone. It is automatically counteracting the estrogen. Just like your chasteberries. Your chasteberries will be progesterone. Your Donquois is progesterone. Yeah, it's over here on your herbs.
Okay, herbs.
Yeah, on your herbs over here. On page, where's that page at? Page 4 or 6, where it said the low, yeah, it's over here under the low estrogen. On page 5 and 6. And everything under that column of low estrogen, it would automatically be progesterone. That means the foods and the herbs, it's going to be low estrogen, which is progesterone. Because progesterone is the only thing going to bring estrogen down. That in weight loss. Anything else? But there are charts for every condition. There are charts for every condition, and they all are different.
Question. Here in the food in high in estrogen, in red, is said to avoid the item, right?
Where are you? What page?
Page 6, there are food high in estrogen.
Yes.
The one in red is the one that we should avoid, right?
That's right.
And there is carrots.
Right.
In page 5 before, in the low in estrogen, recommend there is carrot juice.
Right.
So,
it's in red.
Yeah, one is red, so in one page say it's not good, another page it says it's good.
And soy is the same way. Soy can be good and it can be bad. Carrots can be good and it can be bad. Depending on how much you consume. Soy can actually block estrogen. Soy can increase estrogen, depending on the quantity you take in. So carrots, 6 ounces, 2 times a day is good.
2 times a week.
2 times a week is good. But carrot juice, 12 ounces or more a day is bad. Because it's the quantity. That's where a little honey is good, but too much make you vomit. It don't mean the honey is bad. It means that the quantity is causing the problem. Okay? So can we stop there? Is that it? Yes.
On the chart, suppose if you started at any point, and then what is your target when you sort of like reducing? Do you want to end up below where you started?
Well, you want to get as close to the normal as you can. Normal and optimal is where.
The normal would be that period of 4 to 5 days?
3, yeah, to 5 to 7 days. Is it 3 to 7 or 3 to 5?
Let's say if a woman have not regular
3
period,
to 7.
you will put it back to normal.
Yeah.
You will adjust the order.
So the period will adjust to the normal, not exceed 7 days on a period. And then all other associated problems would leave, such as bleeding, heavy cramping. When you get back to that, you know you have reversed the cause. That's the only way you're going to know. Once you reverse the condition, she's no longer bleeding. Her period is in a normal range. She feels good. She's lost the extra body weight. Then she's in a normal rate. You've got to go by how she feels at that point, because that's the only true test you're going to have, other than going to get some medical tests done.
Say if it's a young lady having a problem, because I have some friends that cannot get pregnant because of the hormones imbalance. So if you put it under this type of program, it will help also to get normalized and she can get pregnant.
It's going to increase her chance. We have a program for fertility. I've worked with a lot of people that want to have babies, and we put them on a fertility program.
You get charged for that also?
Yeah, we work it out, and I show them how to check the vaginal fluids, check the body temperature, check the time of month when it's most fertile, and it's a good chance they will. If they both check out to be in healthy condition, sometimes it's the man, it's not the woman. So if they both check out right, and the body temperature, the vaginal fluid is right, why not? They should get pregnant. 3 days before ovulation, 3 days after ovulation, 3 days before your period, 3 days after your period, 3 days after your period end, it's the most fertile point. So you should, stand a good chance during that time.
Do you have also chart for the men?
I do. I work with men with, right. I sure do. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's have a word of prayer. Dear Father, which art in heaven, Lord, thank you so much, Lord, as we've gone through this session. And Lord, we are pleased to see the progress. Lord, you have blessed this people, Lord, to be quick. And Lord, that their mind, Lord, is receptive and is gaining and growing. And dear Father, they are learning more than they can imagine. If they would take this and run with it and build on this, in a little while, dear Father, you would use them to travel around, to encourage others, to inspire them. And this gospel, Lord, would have gone all around the world, and you will soon come. In Christ's name, amen.